Hey, what's up, everybody? So the beat goes on. I'm gonna go with the Trailblazers and the Nuggets for this particular video. My name is BDF44. Thank you guys for watching. So this is what it is. The Blazers are going into this series pretty much fully healthy. That's the thing. You got Dame Lillard ready to go. You got CJ McCollum, who's missed a lot of games. He's out there. He's ready to go. You got what's his name? Nusef Nurkic, who's missed damn near almost a whole season. He's back, ready to go. So they've just acquired Norman Powell from the Toronto Raptors at the trade deadline. Healthy and ready to go, playing great. Has kind of had enough time to work his way into their system. So now they're ready to roll with him. This is a Portland team. They got Enes Kanter playing well, healthy, ready to go. It's a Portland team that's dangerous as heck, man. Like, dangerous. And to be honest with you, I'm glad we didn't have to face them. I'm glad my team didn't have to face Portland Trailblazers because that's what it is right now. They are playing their best basketball at the right time. They're getting everybody healthy back at the right time. And I just look at this situation, and that's how I see them. On the other hand, you got the Denver Nuggets, and the Denver Nuggets are a team that probably has your MVP on it. Now, I know there's a lot of players that we could talk about for MVP. Steph Curry's been the hottest name as of late. But the guy who's been most consistent all year long for me has been Nikola Jokic. He has been the best player consistently all season long. It's been probably the most competitive MVP race that I've ever seen. It's probably about 10 or 11 names that you can toss in the hat and have a legitimate conversation for, argument for rather. But at the end of the day, who's been healthy all year long? Whose team's been good enough all year long? Who's affected the most success for their basketball club? Jokic has answered that question for me each and every time. He's answered all those questions. So that's who I would vote as MVP if it were my choice. And with that being said, the problem with them is they don't have Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray is their closer. Jamal Murray is the guy you would go to in situations like this to outduel or at least try to match duel Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum. He's the guy you go through in the last minute of the game and say, go give me a bucket. He's the guy that you, when it's like 3 minutes left to go and you're down by 8, he's the guy you're looking to pull up from 3 and just strike through 2 threes in a row to cut the lead. He's one of those players that was born to display the killer instinct. That Mamba mentality, that Dame time energy, that Michael Jordan mystique, killer instinct, that is something that he has. And unfortunately, when he's not down there, you don't have that. And in going up against Dame Lillard, it would be best to have that. The one thing that I know about Nikola Jokic is that he doesn't mind banging. He's not the type of big to where if he's going up against a Jusuf Nurkic, you're concerned. And this should be an interesting series in that regard because remember, Jusuf Nurkic used to be a Nugget, and they played together for like 2 years, maybe more than that. So, yeah, I know that was a hell of a thing that the Nuggets had going at the time, but that's what it was. Nurkic and Jokic were rookies together and played with each other for 3 years, so they know one another. And this should be an interesting matchup from that perspective alone. Now, obviously, no one's going to confuse the two. We know who's the greater player. But Jusuf Nurkic, I will say, has put up one of the greatest stat lines I've ever seen in my entire life at some point, maybe like 4 years ago. One of the greatest stat lines you'll ever see in your life. Go Google that. You'll see what I'm talking about. So what I'm saying to you is they have some players they can throw at him. They have some players they can throw at Jokic to where even though they may not necessarily stop him from doing what he's doing, they could maybe draw some fouls or put him in a position to get worn down as the series progresses. You look at a piece like Aaron Gordon, he's going to be important because if in the event that does take place, he's going to be one of the guys that you look to kind of make up for the lost production. If for some reason Jokic has a not so Jokic series, I'm going to be looking for Aaron Gordon to give me 25, 30 points. Now I'm switching my attention to Michael Porter Jr., who's basically shown us all that he's next up. He's one of the next great scoring players in this league. And it's just about him continuing to build his game. And I think at this point, this is an opportunity once again for him to show what he can do in the playoffs. Last year he did the same. He did that and put everybody on notice against the Clippers and against the Lakers respectively. And I think he's going to continue that process of being a playoff performer this season against the Portland Trail Blazers. So expect for him to have a big series. And it's going to be interesting because, like I said, the Portland Trail Blazers also have scorers on the other end, like Carmelo Anthony, Norman Powell, who can kind of match some of that energy that they're going to be getting in that regard too. So this is a good matchup. And I'm kind of on the fence about how I feel about it as it pertains to predictions because I just don't really know. There's two things in play as well. It's just always, when I consider Utah and Denver, the things that always come to mind is altitude for both of those teams. So any team that goes into those arenas are going to be at a disadvantage physically based on that. So I always work that into the equation when considering those two teams. And this is no exception. Obviously, Utah has home court advantage in this series. Denver has home court advantage in this series. And I think that can work in Denver's favor, especially given the fact that they don't have their closer on the floor. But they do have a lot of weapons. They got a young guy by the name of Campazzo at the on that Denver team who's stepped into that point guard position and kind of gave them a little more traditional, cohesive passing type of play as to where Murray wasn't really a facilitator at all. This guy comes in and gives them a second facilitator with Jokic to make their offense flow even better. So in theory, that should translate as well to some very good cohesive basketball play. And I think because of that, coupled with home court advantage, I do like Denver in this series. Now, the heroics of Dame Lillard are not to be denied. He has already won 2 series in clutch fashion, 2 in his career. With long distance threes, he tends to overachieve in these situations. And with a healthy CJ McCollum, they have a potent offensive threat with their backcourt that is going to be very, very difficult for Denver to contain. So if Denver does lose this series, I do ultimately believe it's going to be because those 2 players went off and that the Denver Nuggets did not have Jamal Murray to offset that intense clutch play. That's what concerns me. However, I don't think the games are going to be that close. When you're talking about Jokic and what he's able to do out there, coupled with what the size that they throw out there with their offensive players, Jokic, Gordon, and Porter, I think it's going to create some problems for the Portland Trail Blazers. You're going to have to find ways of guarding those guys. And I don't know who they have out there that's going to do that. I don't think they really have an answer defensively for Porter. Carmelo Anthony, Norman Powell. I just don't know where who is going to play that role for them. Am I missing somebody? Is there somebody on that team? I know that they have Derrick Jones Jr., but he hasn't really played that well. And, he has a reputation for not really showing up for teams, when they need him to. He's kind of here and there. So if he's up for playing defense, maybe he can be that answer. But I wouldn't throw him in front of Porter and say have success. I'm just not expecting that at all. So for me, this series is up in the air because if Denver's able to keep the games from being close, they can win this series in 5. But if the games are close, I think Portland has the edge of winning those particular games, if that makes any sense. So that's really what I have to say. It all depends on how well Denver's able to control the middle quarters. That's what's most important. If Denver can contain Dame Lillard, keep him from going for 50, contain CJ McCollum, keep him from going off for 35, contain Powell, keep him from going for 30, contain they have a lot to contain with the Portland Trail Blazers. That's the problem. You got so many different offensive threats coming from different positions. You know what I mean? To where it's almost like you wonder if Denver has enough offensively scoring the ball to keep up. You know, it's like Portland can score, but you just have to wonder if Portland is going to be able to stay sharp throughout quarters at a time, or will there be moments of it throughout their game where they have scoring droughts, right? That's what it's going to be for Portland. Can you keep from having scoring droughts when you don't have a facilitator out there, when you don't necessarily have Dame on the floor or CJ maybe in foul trouble, something like that? Can Norman Powell, can guys like that continue to keep up the scoring with Denver, who's going to have Jokic out there diming the ball all over the place, making sure guys on his team get open shots? So I think that's going to be it. Controlling the boards, how well Jusuf Nurkic can keep up with controlling the boards, keeping Jokic off the boards, that kind of thing, keeping Porter off the boards, so on and so forth. So it's a lot to consider. At the end of the day, when it comes down to this series for me, I just look and I say, who is going to close for Denver? Who is going to close for Denver? Even if Denver is able to blow Portland out in a couple games, in those other games, it's going to come down to a couple possessions here and there. Who can get the stops? Who can get the score? And from where I'm sitting, I trust that Dame is going to get that shot and get the score. So with that being said, I've been all over the place. I've broken down this series, and I hadn't come to a real conclusion to this very second. And right now, I'm just going to throw a rabbit in the hat and pull him right back out and say, I think Denver is ultimately going to win this series. I do. I think Denver is ultimately going to win this series because I just think that Jokic is going to facilitate his team into a victorious situation there. It may take 7 games, and Dame may do some miraculous stuff, but I just look at Denver, even though they don't have Jamal Murray, they do have enough offensive players and a cohesive point guard who can create for others. Just enough of that to offset what I think is a slightly less talented Portland Trailblazer team from top to bottom. I just think Denver's slightly deeper, slightly better, definitely going to be more cohesive offensively, maybe a little better rebounding the ball. And I think that's what it is. So I got Denver winning this in 7. I'm going to say 7 because if it took this long to figure it out, it's probably going to come down to 7 games. So Denver in 7 is my prediction. Who knows how this actually goes. Thank you guys for watching. My name is BDF44, and I'll keep these videos coming. Peace.